"You're not on the list. There must be a mistake." Those were the words my wife of 19 years said to me in front of 200 guests at a beautiful vineyard in Middleburg, Virginia. It was her daughter Belle's wedding day. I had paid for every single detail of that wedding. The flowers, the chairs, the endless bottles of champagne. I was the man who had helped Belle with her algebra homework when she was 11, and the one who sat in the front row at her college graduation when her biological father failed to show. Now Camille, my wife, was standing between me and the reception tent, her hand flat against my chest like I was a stranger trying to crash a party I had funded. I didn't argue or raise my voice. I looked at her for exactly 3 seconds, said, "It's okay," and walked back to my car. By the time I reached my house in Great Falls, I had already called my lawyer. Camille and her daughter were about to learn exactly what kind of mistake they had made. My name is Whitfield Calloway. I'm a 52-year-old estate planning attorney in Alexandria, Virginia. For over 2 decades, I've helped people structure inheritances and navigate family fractures. Say it's unglamorous work, but it taught me a brutal truth. Documents matter more than promises. People will tell you they love you forever, but paper tells you the truth. 14 years ago, I met Camille at a fundraising gala. She was a divorced mother, raising a 9-year-old daughter on an unstable income. I fell for her, but I was deliberate about our future. I wanted to build a real bond with Belle first. I showed up to her soccer games, learned her favorite drinks, and earned her trust. By the time Camille and I married, 12-year-old Belle stood beside us and gave a tearful toast, calling me the first person who ever showed up for her without being asked twice. I kept that handwritten speech in my desk drawer for nearly 2 decades. I gave Belle everything, paying for her braces, her car insurance, her study abroad semesters, and stepping in financially at George Washington University when financial aid fell short. I was her real father, regardless of biology. Meanwhile, I helped Camille build her business, Calloway Interiors, from a struggling LLC into a prestigious firm catering to wealthy diplomats and politicians. I reviewed her contracts and backed her through the lean years. I built a life with these 2 women, believing it was permanent. The cracks started appearing about 18 months before the wedding. Camille became distant, taking private calls behind closed doors and returning late from client dinners smelling of wine and unfamiliar cologne. The man, I later discovered, was Desmond Hartley, a venture capitalist 12 years her junior. As an attorney trained to spot the early signs of a fracturing family, I sensed the shift, but I didn't know the extent of the betrayal. I didn't yet know about Desmond when I drove to the vineyard that Saturday. I only knew that over the past year, I had been systematically erased from the wedding planning. I was excluded from the menu tastings and left off the seating charts under the guise of oversights and paranoia. I was even told to skip the rehearsal dinner. What I didn't realize until much later was that Belle had no part in this. Camille had spent a year lying to her, claiming I was uncomfortable attending due to a private conflict and that it would be easier on everyone if I stayed away. Caught up in wedding stress, Belle trusted her mother and didn't call me to verify. On the morning of the wedding, I drove out in the navy suit Camille had picked for me, carrying a generous check as a wedding gift. When I reached the entrance, the coordinator checking names looked at me with deep discomfort and told me I wasn't on the digital list. That's when Camille appeared in a stunning champagne gown. With 200 guests watching, people I had hosted in my home, people whose children I had set up trust funds for, my wife placed her hand on my chest and publicly banned me from the venue. I am a man who thrives on calm precision. In my line of work, the person who stays calm always leaves the room with the advantage. I turned around, walked past the staring guests and sat in my car for exactly 4 minutes in calculating silence. Camille had forgotten who I was. I don't get angry. I get precise. I drove straight home, opened my laptop, and called my closest friend from law school, Garrison Reyes, a top family law attorney. I laid out the facts flatly. Camille thought she could erase me, but she didn't understand the financial architecture holding her life together. Before our marriage, I had insisted on a strict prenuptial agreement that protected my premarital assets, including our Great Falls home and my substantial investment portfolio. More importantly, when Camille started her design firm, the initial $240,000 startup loan came directly from my personal assets. The LLC terms gave me a contractual security interest in her company until the loan was paid in full. Over 12 years, she had only repaid a fraction of it, letting the rest roll into our shared finances. On paper, I had a massive legal claim to her thriving business. Furthermore, 3 weeks prior, I had hired a private investigator who delivered a comprehensive file of hotel records and photographs documenting Camille's ongoing affair with Desmond. By 8 a.m. Sunday, Garrison was at my kitchen table. I instructed him to immediately enforce the security interest on Qley Interiors, demanding the full outstanding loan balance within 30 days. I ordered the divorce papers filed, utilizing the infidelity evidence to trigger clauses that completely eliminated her spousal support. I told Garrison that Belle must be kept entirely out of the crossfire. On Monday morning, the papers were hand-delivered to Camille's office and our home. By afternoon, my phone blew up with missed calls from Camille and Desmond. I ignored them all. The next evening, Camille was waiting for me on the porch steps, shivering in the cold. She accused me of trying to destroy her, begging me not to liquidate her company over an old debt. When she claimed I was just punishing her for a mistake at the wedding entrance, I stopped her cold and told her I knew about Desmond. The total collapse on her face was immediate. She tried to offer excuses, but I told her I didn't need explanations anymore. I'd needed a seat at a wedding I paid for, and since she couldn't manage that, I didn't need anything else from her. The following Sunday, I met Belle for coffee. The moment she sat down, she burst into tears, swearing she had no idea what her mother had done. She had blindly believed Camille's lies. I held her hand and reassured her that she had done nothing wrong. I told her that while her mother and I were divorcing, nothing would ever change the fact that I was her father. Belle wept with relief, and we spent hours untangling the web of lies Camille had spun. Her new husband, Theo, joined us later, shaking my hand and promising me that I would always have a seat at any table they ever set. The ensuing months were a slow, legal grind. Camille's attorney attempted to invalidate the prenuptial agreement, but Garrison easily dismantled their arguments with nearly 2 decades of meticulously kept financial records. The financial blow completely broke Camille's business. To cover the sudden demand for the loan repayment and accrued interest, she was forced to liquidate a massive portion of Qley Interiors to a predatory competitor at a severely depressed valuation. Desmond vanished from her life the moment the scandal threatened his venture capital fundraising. He stopped returning her calls within weeks. By Christmas, Camille was living alone in a rental apartment, while our Great Falls home remained entirely mine. I didn't feel joy watching her life unravel, just the quiet validation of a well-built structure holding its weight. Belle and Theo became a permanent fixture in my life. I spent my Sunday evenings at their kitchen table, just like old times. When Belle completed her master's degree, I was there, and when she gave birth to a daughter the following autumn, she called me first. They named the baby Eleanor Whitfield Whitlock, weaving my name permanently into the next generation. I held my granddaughter in the hospital room just 2 hours after she was born. Camille was not there. Belle had quietly told her mother she needed time, as the wedding betrayal had broken something between them that wasn't ready to be fixed. I never asked Belle to choose a side, but she looked at the evidence of who had consistently shown up for her year after year, and she made her choice. It has been almost 2 years since that day at the vineyard. I still think about Camille's final words to me. She was right. There was a monumental mistake made that day. It just wasn't mine. She forgot that while promises can be broken, paper always remembers.